The jeers began the moment they dragged her into the great hall of Arundel. Valora kept her head down as the guards shoved her forward, their iron grips bruising her arms through the thin fabric of her peasant dress. Her autumn-red hair fell across her face like a curtain, hiding eyes the color of forest moss. Thousands of candles blazed from chandeliers overhead, illuminating the sneering faces of nobles, warriors, and pack elders gathered from every province for the most sacred ceremony in the realm, the choosing. She was not here to be chosen. She was here to be mocked. "The Beast Witch!" someone hissed from the crowd. They actually brought the Beast Witch to the choosing. Laughter rippled through the assembly like poison spreading through water. Valora felt it wash over her, familiar as the scars on her heart. 23 years of hearing those words. 23 years of being the cursed girl who spoke to animals, the unnatural creature who heard voices no wolf-born should hear. Her eyes lifted despite herself, searching for him. The Alpha King stood on the raised dais at the far end of the hall, his powerful frame draped in ceremonial black and gold. Kaelin of the Iron Fang bloodline, ruler of 5 provinces, the most feared wolf in 3 centuries, and the only person in this kingdom who had ever looked at her without disgust. Valora's chest tightened at the memory. 3 weeks ago, in the Thornwood Forest, when his massive black wolf had found her tending to a wounded hawk. She had expected death. Instead, the wolf had laid down beside her, had pressed his great head against her palm. And when she looked up, she found the Alpha King standing at the tree line, watching her with something in his amber eyes that she could not name. He had not spoken to her, had not acknowledged her existence beyond that single, searing glance. But for one breathless moment she had felt seen. Now his face was carved from granite, revealing nothing as Lord Heron Morthane stepped forward with a theatrical flourish. "Your Majesty," Morthane announced, his silver hair gleaming. "Before the candidates present themselves, I offer entertainment for your court. A demonstration of the peculiar creature my men discovered in the eastern woods." He gestured toward Valora, and the crowd's laughter swelled. "They say she speaks to beasts." Morthane's lip curled. "Let us see if the witch can perform." On the dais, something flickered in Kaelin's eyes, and deep within him, his wolf began to stir. The cage they brought was filled with ravens. Valora watched as servants wheeled the iron contraption into the center of the hall, the birds inside screaming with terror. Their fear slammed into her mind, dozens of panicked voices crying out in the ancient tongue that only she could hear. "Trapped, trapped, trapped, death, coming. Make them dance, witch." Lord Morthane's voice dripped with cruel amusement. "Surely your unnatural gift has some use beyond frightening children." The nobles laughed again. Someone threw a goblet that clattered near her feet. Valora did not move. She had learned long ago that performing only made them hungrier for her humiliation. Better to stand silent. Better to endure. Her gaze drifted back to the dais, where 5 noblewomen now stood in flowing white gowns. The candidates. Each one beautiful, powerful, bred from ancient bloodlines. And at their center stood Celestine Morthane, with hair like burnished copper and a smile like a sharpened blade. The woman everyone knew the Alpha King would choose. Kaelin had not moved. His hands gripped the arms of his throne with white-knuckled intensity, but it was his eyes that made Valora's breath catch. They were fixed on her. Not on the candidates, not on the ravens, on her. And they were blazing gold. "He fights," a voice whispered in her mind. "Not the ravens. Something older, deeper. The man fights, but the wolf knows. The wolf remembers." Before Valora could understand, the Alpha King rose from his throne. The hall fell silent. Kaelin descended the dais steps slowly, each footfall echoing through the space. His body moved strangely, muscles rippling beneath his robes as if something was struggling for release. "Your Majesty?" Lord Morthane's confident smile faltered. "The candidates await your—" The shift happened without warning. One moment the Alpha King walked toward her. The next, a wolf the size of a warhorse stood in his place, black fur gleaming like liquid shadow, eyes burning with amber fire. Gasps erupted throughout the hall. The massive wolf prowled forward until he stood directly before Valora. Then, slowly, deliberately, he lowered his great body to the ground and pressed his massive head against her hip. The hall erupted into chaos. "No!" Celestine Morthane's scream pierced the cacophony. "This is impossible. She has bewitched him." But the wolf did not move, did not rise, simply lay before the beast speaker with his throat exposed in the most ancient gesture of choosing. His wolf had claimed her before the entire kingdom. Valora's heart soared for one perfect, impossible moment. Then Kaelin shifted back. He stood before her, human again, his chest heaving. The gold in his eyes flickered, warred, and finally dimmed to something cold and distant. "Sorcery," he said, and his voice carried across the silent hall. "She has used her unnatural abilities to manipulate my wolf." Valora felt the words like a blade through her chest. "This creature," Kaelin continued, each word more hollow than the last, "is not worthy of the throne. She will never be worthy. My choice stands as planned." He turned away from her. "I choose Celestine of House Morthane." The wound that opened in Valora's soul was bottomless. She had been chosen by the wolf. Claimed before thousands in a ceremony that was supposed to be unbreakable. And still, she was not enough. The Alpha King had looked at his own wolf's choice. The woman fate itself had selected for him, and found her so repulsive that he rejected the sacred bond rather than accept her. The crowd's cheers for Celestine drowned out the sound of Valora's heart shattering. They threw her out through the servants' gate like garbage. Vylora landed hard on the frozen cobblestones, her palms splitting open against the ice. Behind her, the castle blazed with celebration. Music and laughter poured from every window. She pushed herself upright on shaking legs. She would not cry. Not here. Not where some guard might see and report that the Beast Witch wept for the king who had declared her worthless. But as she stumbled toward the forest, something strange pulsed beneath her skin. Valora gasped, nearly falling again as heat bloomed across her hip. She clutched at the spot through her dress and felt raised flesh where there had been nothing before. A mark. When the wolf had pressed against her, when his great head had touched her hip, something had transferred. Something had awakened. She yanked up her skirt with trembling hands and stared at the symbol now branded into her flesh. It glowed faintly in the darkness, a pattern of interlocking crescents that seemed to writhe with inner light. "Chosen," the voice whispered again in her mind. "Marked, bound." What the man rejects, the wolf has claimed. What the king denies, fate has sealed. Valora did not understand. Could not understand. She only knew that she had to run. The forest swallowed her whole. She ran until her lungs burned, until branches tore her dress and stones bloodied her feet, until the castle was nothing but a distant glow. Only then did she collapse against an ancient oak and let the tears finally fall. He had rejected her, even when his wolf chose her, even when the bond tried to form. He had looked at her with those cold eyes and decided that politics mattered more than fate. She pressed her hand to the burning mark on her hip. "I will forget you," she whispered to the darkness. "I will carve you out of my heart if it kills me." The mark flared with angry heat, as if in protest. Miles away, in the great hall of Arendal, the Alpha King suddenly doubled over. Kaelin crashed to his knees in the celebration, a scream tearing from his throat. Celestine stumbled backward. Guards rushed forward but could not touch him as his body convulsed. Inside his mind, his wolf was howling, not with grief, with rage. "You denied her," the beast snarled, clawing at the walls of Kaelin's consciousness. "You rejected our mate. You sent her into the darkness alone." "She is not our mate," Kaelin gasped aloud, and his court watched in terror as their king argued with himself. "She cannot be. A peasant. A witch. She is ours." The wolf slammed against his control with the force of a battering ram. Kalen felt his bones begin to shift involuntarily, his wolf trying to tear free and chase after the woman he had just condemned. "Find her," he choked out to Torvald, his beta, before the beast could take control. "Find her, and make sure she leaves the kingdom. I want her gone before sunrise." Torvald hesitated. "My king, your wolf. Do it!" But by the time the beta's scouts reached the forest, Valora had vanished. And deep in the wilderness, surrounded by creatures who gathered to comfort the weeping beast speaker, a bond that should have died was growing stronger. 4 months had passed since the night Valora fled Arendal. She had traveled far beyond the kingdom's borders, crossing mountain ranges and frozen rivers until she reached the remote village of Ashenmere. A place so small it appeared on no maps, a place where no one had heard of the Beast Witch. Here, she was simply Vera, the quiet healer who lived in the abandoned mill by the creek. The villagers had been suspicious at first, but when Valora saved the blacksmith's son from a fever that should have killed him, when she coaxed the village's barren goats into producing milk, when she called down a hawk to hunt the rats destroying their grain stores, suspicion transformed into gratitude. They did not know she spoke to the animals. They only knew that creatures obeyed her, and their village prospered because of it. Valora told herself she was content. She rose each morning before dawn, grinding herbs and mixing poultices. She tended to the sick and wounded, both human and animal. She ate simple meals. She slept on a straw mattress. She tried very hard not to dream, but the mark on her hip would not let her forget. It should have faded by now. Every text she had ever read about mate bonds said the same thing. A rejected bond withered within weeks, leaving nothing but a faint scar and bitter memories. Instead, hers had grown darker, more intricate. The interlocking crescents had spread across her hip like living vines, pulsing with heat that kept her awake through the coldest nights. And worse, she could feel him through it. Not his thoughts, not his words, but his presence, like a shadow at the edge of her consciousness. Some nights, she woke gasping from dreams that were not her own, dreams of howling at an empty moon, dreams of clawing at stone walls, dreams of searching, endlessly searching, for something just out of reach. "He suffers," the voice whispered. It came more frequently now, that ancient presence that had first spoken during the choosing. The man caged the wolf tears at its prison. Both are dying. "Good," Valora said aloud, and hated the way her voice trembled. "Let him suffer." She pressed her palm against the mark until the heat burned her hand. "Let him feel even a fraction of what he did to me." But that night, when the dreams came again, she wept in her sleep for a man who had called her worthless before his entire kingdom. The peddler arrived in Ashenmere on the first warm day of spring. Valora was treating a farmer's sprained ankle when the commotion began outside her mill. Voices raised in excitement, the thunder of hooves, the creak of wagon wheels. "News from the capital!" someone shouted. "News from Arendal!" Valora's hands froze on the bandage. "Go on, girl," the farmer said, noticing her sudden stillness. "Peddlers only come twice a year. Whatever they are selling, it will be gone within the hour." She forced herself to finish wrapping his ankle before stepping outside. The village square was packed. Farmers, craftsmen, and children crowded around a weathered wagon painted in faded colors. The peddler himself stood atop his seat, arms spread wide as he addressed his audience. "I tell you, I saw it with my own eyes," he declared. "The Alpha King has gone mad." Valora stopped breathing. "His wolf has turned savage, attacks anyone who approaches. The wedding to Lady Celestine has been postponed 3 times because the king cannot control his shifts." The peddler leaned forward conspiratorially. "They say he howls through the night, every night." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "But that is not the strangest part." The peddler's voice dropped. "The king has issued a proclamation. He seeks a woman, a healer with unusual gifts, hair like autumn leaves and eyes the color of forest moss." Valora's heart slammed against her ribs. He has offered 100,000 gold pieces for information leading to her discovery. 100,000, and immunity from all crimes for anyone who brings her to the capital. The crowd gasped at the staggering sum. Valora took a step backward, then another. "Why does he want her?" someone called out. The peddler shrugged. "Some say she stole from him. Others say she cursed him. But the wolves I spoke to on the road whisper something different." His eyes gleamed. "They say the king's wolf chose her at the choosing ceremony, chose her over a highborn lady, and when the king rejected that choice, his wolf began to punish him." Valora turned and walked away, before anyone could notice her trembling. She did not see the cloaked figure watching from the edge of the square. She did not notice the scout's amber eyes that followed her retreating form. And she did not hear the soft words spoken into the spring wind as he turned to race back to his beta. Found her. The knock came at midnight. Valora bolted upright in bed, her heart racing. No one in Ashenmere visited after dark. The village believed in old superstitions about night spirits and wandering dead. The knock came again. 3 sharp raps. Then a voice she had never expected to hear again. "Valora, I know you are in there, please. I have not come to harm you." She recognized it instantly. Torvald, the Alpha King's beta. For a long moment she considered staying silent, considered slipping out the back window and vanishing into the night as she had 4 months ago. But the mark on her hip flared with sudden searing heat, and she knew running would be pointless. If Torvald had found her, others would too. She opened the door with a knife hidden behind her back. The beta stood on her threshold, alone. His face was haggard, deep shadows beneath his eyes. He looked like a man who had not slept in weeks. "May I enter?" he asked quietly. "What I have to say should not be overheard." Against her better judgment, Valora stepped aside. Torvald moved into her small home, his massive frame making the space feel cramped. He looked around at her modest possessions, and something like grief crossed his features. "This is where you have been," he murmured, "while he tears the kingdom apart. I did not ask him to search for me." Valora's voice was ice. "I did not ask for any of this." "No, you did not." Torvald turned to face her. "But I need you to understand what has happened since you left." He told her everything. He told her how Kaelin had collapsed moments after rejecting her, how his wolf had seized control and nearly killed 3 guards, how the king had woken screaming her name. "The bond formed anyway," Torvald said heavily. "When his wolf touched you, it completed the claiming ritual whether Kaelin accepted it or not. For 4 months, he has been fighting his own soul." Valora shook her head. "He called me worthless. He chose Celestine. He chose politics over fate, and fate has made him pay." Torvald's eyes were haunted. "The wolf refuses to recognize Celestine. It attacks her if she comes near. The wedding cannot proceed because the king's own beast would kill his bride at the altar." Something dark and satisfied curled in Valora's chest. She hated herself for it. "The kingdom is suffering," Torvald continued. "Crops wither. Livestock sicken. Wolves across all 5 provinces feel the wrongness of their alpha's broken bond. If this continues, everything Kaelin built will collapse. And you want me to fix it?" Valora laughed bitterly. "You want me to return and save the man who humiliated me before thousands. I want you to survive." Torvald reached into his cloak and withdrew a folded parchment. "This was intercepted 3 days ago." Valora took it with numb fingers. The seal was already broken, but she recognized the Morthane serpent pressed into the black wax. The message was brief. "The beast witch has been located. She must not reach the capital alive. The claiming mark must be destroyed before it can be used against our house. Eliminate her and the threat she poses to my daughter's throne. Spare no expense." "Lord Morthane has sent assassins," Torvald said grimly. 12 of them. They are perhaps 2 days behind me." The knife slipped from Valora's nerveless fingers. 12 assassins. 2 days. And the only man who might protect her was the same one who had shattered her heart. The assassins did not wait 2 days. They came at dawn, emerging from the mist like wraiths. Valora had barely slept, her mind churning with everything Torvald had revealed. She was standing at her window, watching the sun bleed across the horizon when she saw them. 12 figures in black, spreading through the village in coordinated silence. They are here. Her voice came out steady despite the terror in her chest. Torvald, they are already here. The beta was on his feet instantly, a blade appearing in each hand. The back door. Now. I will hold them. You cannot fight 12 alone. I can buy you time. He pushed her toward the rear of the mill. Run, Valora, find the king. He is closer than you think. Before she could argue, the front door exploded inward. The first assassin died with Torvald's blade in his throat. The second managed to slash the beta's arm before being thrown through the window, but more poured through the opening. Valora ran. She burst through the back door into the misty morning, her bare feet slipping on dew-soaked grass. Behind her, she heard Torvald's roar of pain and the clash of steel against steel. 3 assassins materialized from the fog ahead. She skidded to a halt, trapped between the mill and the advancing killers. The lead assassin raised a crossbow, its bolt gleaming with something that made Valora's mark burn in warning. Wolfsbane. They had coated their weapons in wolfsbane. The beast witch, the assassin said, her voice muffled behind a serpent mask. Lord Morthane sends his regards. Valora's back pressed against the mill's wooden wall. No weapons, no escape, no hope. But as the assassin's finger tightened on the trigger, something stirred in the forest. A chorus of sounds, growls and hisses and shrieks, the rustle of countless bodies moving through undergrowth. The assassins hesitated, glancing toward the tree line, and Valora felt her gift surge within her like a river breaking through a dam. She had spent her entire life suppressing this power, hiding it, using only fragments to avoid being burned as a witch. But now, with death inches away, something ancient and vast rose up from the depths of her soul. Come, she commanded, and the word resonated not through air but through the invisible threads connecting her to every living creature within miles. The forest answered. Wolves burst from the trees first, a dozen of them, their eyes blazing with borrowed golden light. Hawks descended from the sky in screaming waves. Foxes and badgers and creatures that had no business fighting together charged into the clearing as one unified force. The assassin's formation shattered. Valora watched in shocked awe as the animals tore into her enemies. The serpent-masked woman went down beneath 3 wolves. Another assassin fled shrieking as hawks clawed at his eyes. The coordinated killers became scattered prey. But her power had limits. The surge of energy drained from her like water from a cracked vessel. Valora's knees buckled. The golden light in the animal's eyes flickered and died. And 3 assassins, bloodied but alive, turned their attention back to the vulnerable woman collapsing against the mill. Witch! One of them spat, raising a sword coated in dark poison. Your tricks will not save you. Valora tried to summon her gift again, found nothing but emptiness. The sword began its descent. A shape exploded from the mist with the force of a thunderbolt. Black fur, burning amber eyes, jaws that closed around the assassin's sword arm and tore it clean from his body. The other 2 assassins turned to face the new threat, but they were dead before they completed the motion. The massive wolf moved like liquid shadow, impossibly fast, impossibly powerful. Within seconds, only silence remained. Valora stared up at the wolf standing over her, blood dripping from his muzzle. She knew him, would know him anywhere. Kaelin's wolf had come for her, and this time, no man stood in his way. The shift rippled through the massive form like water disturbed by stone. One moment, the wolf stood above her. The next, Kaelin knelt in the blood-stained grass, his chest heaving, his amber eyes wild with emotions she could not name. He looked terrible. Dark circles carved hollows beneath his eyes. His cheekbones stood out sharply. His hands trembled where they hovered over her, wanting to touch, but not daring. Valora. Her name emerged from his throat like a prayer and a wound. You are alive. You are real. She should have pushed him away. Should have screamed at him for the humiliation, the rejection, the months of agony. Instead, she heard herself whisper, You came. My wolf. Kaelin's voice cracked. He has been leading me here for 3 days. I tried to fight him, tried to stay away. But he would not stop. Would not let me rest until I found you. His gaze dropped to the mark visible where her dress had torn in the chaos. The intricate crescents that had spread across her hip, glowing faintly even now. The bond, he breathed. It really did form. I felt it, but I thought. I hoped. You hoped it would fade. Valora's voice hardened. You hoped I would simply disappear and take your mistake with me. Pain spasmed across his features. Yes. No, I do not know what I hoped. I only know that every moment since that night has been agony. Torvald stumbled around the corner of the mill, clutching a wound in his side. 3 dead assassins lay in his wake, but he was pale with blood loss. My king. The beta's voice was weak but relieved. Your timing is impeccable. Kalen rose, positioning himself between Valora and any remaining threat. How many more? These were all of them, I think, but Morthane will send more when these do not return. Torvald's eyes met Valora's. She saved us. The animals. They came when she called. Kalen turned to look at her, something new in his expression. Awe, and something deeper that she refused to acknowledge. You truly do speak to beasts, he said softly. I truly do. Valora pushed herself upright on shaking legs, rejecting the hand he extended to help. And your wolf speaks to me too. He has been screaming in my dreams for 4 months, screaming for the mate you threw away. Kalen flinched as if she had struck him. Good. We need to move, Torvald interrupted. More assassins will come, and the kingdom. He exchanged a weighted glance with Kalen. What about the kingdom? Valora demanded. Kalen's jaw tightened. The Morthanes have been consolidating power in my absence. Without a completed bond, without my wolf's cooperation, the noble houses smell weakness. If I do not return soon with a resolution, there may not be a throne to return to. And you need me for that resolution. I need you because my soul is dying without you. The words tore from him raw and unguarded. But yes, the kingdom needs you too. The bond needs to be acknowledged, completed, or everything falls apart. Valora stared at him, at this powerful king brought low by his own choices. You rejected me in front of thousands, she said quietly. And now you want me to save you? Yes. No excuse, no justification, just the bare, broken truth. The mark on her hip pulsed with heat that spread through her entire body. Then we have a great deal to discuss on the journey back. They made camp that night in a sheltered ravine, far from roads and villages. Torvald's wounds needed rest, despite Valora's attempts to tend them with her herbs. The beta had lost too much blood, and she did not dare call on her gift again so soon after nearly depleting it entirely, which left her alone with Kalen by the fire. The silence between them was thick with 4 months of pain and unanswered questions. Valora stared into the flames, acutely aware of him sitting across from her. Ask, Kalen finally said. Whatever you need to know. I will hide nothing. Why? The question exploded from her. Why did you reject me? Your wolf chose me. The bond was forming. You could have accepted it, and none of this would have happened. Kalen was silent for a long moment. Because I was afraid, he said at last. Valora had expected excuses about politics, duty, bloodlines, not this. The Alpha King was afraid, she repeated flatly. The Alpha King has been afraid his entire life. Kalen's eyes remained fixed on the fire. My father was a monster. He took his fated mate and destroyed her. Used the bond as a leash until there was nothing left of the woman she had been. His hands clenched into fists. I swore I would never do that to anyone. When my wolf started responding to you, that day in the forest, I told myself it meant nothing. When he chose you at the choosing, I panicked. He finally looked at her, and his eyes glistened. I thought if I rejected the bond quickly enough, it would spare you. Spare both of us. Spare me? Valora's voice rose. You called me worthless before your entire kingdom. You let them drag me out like refuse. You sent me into exile carrying a bond that should not exist, feeling your suffering bleed into my dreams every night while I tried to forget you existed. I know. I built a new life. I found peace. And then you came crashing back. And now assassins want me dead. And the kingdom is falling apart. And you sit there telling me it was for my protection? I know. His voice broke. I was wrong. I was so terrified of becoming my father that I became something worse. A coward who hurt the one person in this world I was meant to cherish. Valora rose to her feet, pacing. Do you know what that night did to me? I was already nothing. An orphan with a curse that made everyone fear me. And then your wolf looked at me like I mattered. Like I was precious. For one moment, I believed that maybe I could belong somewhere. Tears burned her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. And then, you took it away. You looked at me with those cold eyes and told me I was not worthy. Not worthy of you. Not worthy of the throne. Not worthy of anything but mockery and exile. Kaelin rose too, moving toward her with desperate urgency. You are worthy of everything. His hands hovered near her face, not quite touching. You are the strongest person I have ever known. You survived things that would have destroyed anyone else. You built a life from nothing. You called an army of beasts to defend yourself when trained assassins came to kill you. His voice dropped to a whisper. And you have haunted every moment of my existence since the night I drove you away. I have not slept without dreaming of you. Have not drawn a breath without feeling the bond screaming for you. My wolf has been tearing me apart from the inside, and I deserve it. I deserve every moment of suffering for what I did. Valora's walls trembled. You rejected me, she whispered. I rejected myself. Kaelin's forehead dropped to rest against hers. You were never the problem. I was. My fear. My weakness. A sob escaped her throat. I cannot forgive you yet. I am not asking you to. His breath was warm against her skin. I am asking for the chance to earn it. Every day. For the rest of our lives. The bond between them pulsed with desperate hope. Before Valora could respond, Torvald's voice cut through the darkness. My king! Riders approaching! Fast! Kaelin shifted instantly into protective mode, pulling Valora behind him as 3 wolves burst into the campsite. They skidded to a halt, shifting into human forms. Scouts. Their faces were grim with news. Your Majesty! The lead scout gasped. The Morthanes have made their move. Lord Heron has declared you unfit to rule. Lady Celestine has been named Queen Regent. Valora felt Kaelin's entire body go rigid. They have taken the capital. The scout continued. Anyone loyal to you has been imprisoned. They plan to execute them at the full moon as traitors. He hesitated. Including your mother, Your Majesty. The sound that tore from Kaelin's throat was not human. His mother. The Morthanes had his mother, and the full moon was only 3 days away. They rode through the night and the following day without rest. Kaelin had commandeered horses from a loyal village, and now their small party thundered across the countryside toward Arendal. Valora clung to him on his massive black stallion, her arms wrapped around his waist. She told herself it was merely practical. The pace was too brutal for her to ride alone. But the bond hummed with something deeper every time his heart beat against her palms. Tell me about her, Valora said during a brief rest stop, while the horses drank from a stream. Your mother. Kaelin's expression softened in a way she had never seen. Lady Morena, the only person who ever dared to defy my father. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. She was not his fated mate, that poor woman he destroyed before I was born. My mother was a political match, chosen for alliance. But when he tried to break her the same way, she simply refused to bend. She built a secret network within the castle, protecting servants, hiding those who needed to escape his cruelty. She sounds remarkable. She is, and she has spent 20 years waiting for me to find the courage she always had. His eyes met Vylora's. She would have loved you from the moment she saw my wolf choose you. Something warm bloomed in Vylora's chest despite her determination to maintain distance. As they remounted, Kalen pulled her closer than necessary. His lips brushed her ear. "I will get her back," he said. "I will save my people. And then I will spend every remaining day of my life proving that you are the most precious thing in my world." The mark on her hip flared with answering heat. They reached the outskirts of Arendal on the evening of the second day. What they found made Vylora's blood turn to ice. The capital was transformed. Morthane banners flew from every tower. Armed guards patrolled the walls in serpent-emblazoned armor, and in the great square before the castle gates, a massive wooden platform had been constructed. An execution platform. "How many prisoners?" Kalen demanded of his scouts. 47 confirmed, Your Majesty. Servants, guards, minor nobles who refused to swear loyalty to the new regime. The scout's voice trembled. "They are scheduled to die at moonrise tomorrow." "My mother?" "Alive, being held in the tower as leverage. Lord Morthane has announced that her execution will be last, unless you surrender yourself." Vylora watched Kalen's hands clench and unclench on his reins. "How many wolves do we have?" "Perhaps 300 total, scattered across the provinces." "Against?" "The Morthanes have consolidated nearly 1,000, plus mercenaries and human soldiers." The numbers were impossible. 300 wolves against over 1,000 enemies. "There has to be another way," Torvald said grimly. "An infiltration, a targeted strike. They will kill the hostages the moment I am spotted." Kalen's voice was hollow. "Morthane wants me to surrender. He knows I will not sacrifice 47 innocent lives." Vylora stared at the distant city, at the torches flickering along its walls like malevolent stars. 47 hostages, including the mother of the man she was bonded to, the woman who had survived a monster and built something good from the wreckage. She thought of Ashenmere, of the villagers who had accepted her, of the blacksmith's son she had saved from fever. She thought of every person who had ever shown her kindness in a world that had mostly shown her cruelty. "There is another way," she heard herself say. Every eye turned to her. "The Morthanes want me too. Perhaps even more than they want Kalen." Vylora met Torvald's gaze, then Kalen's. "If I offer myself in exchange for the hostages." "No." Kalen's response was immediate and absolute. "I did not search for 4 months to watch you walk into their hands. It would not be a true surrender." Vylora's mind raced. "It would be a distraction. While they are focused on me, your wolves could. They would kill you before we could reach you." "Maybe not." She pressed her hand to her hip, where the mark pulsed with warmth. "They want this destroyed. They want to eliminate any claim I have to the throne, but that takes time. Rituals. They will not simply slit my throat. You do not know that." "I know Lord Morthane is a man who savors his victories." Vylora held Kalen's gaze. "He will want to make a spectacle of destroying me. That gives your wolves time to act." The bond between them screamed in protest. She could feel Kalen's terror bleeding through, his wolf howling at the thought of its mate in danger. But beneath the fear, she also felt his reluctant recognition. She was right, and he knew it. "If anything happens to you," Kalen said hoarsely, "my wolf will burn this kingdom to ashes. There will be nothing left." Vylora reached up to touch his face. "Then make sure nothing happens to me." The gates of Arendal opened at dawn. Vylora walked toward them alone, her hands raised to show she carried no weapons. The guards on the wall watched with crossbows ready. Her mark burned beneath her simple dress. Through the bond, she felt Kalen's agony as he watched from the distant tree line. "Hold," she thought, hoping somehow he could hear her. "Trust me." The gates groaned open and a delegation emerged. 6 guards flanking a figure Vylora had hoped never to see again. Celestine Morthane smiled like a cat with a trapped mouse. "The Beast Witch returns." Her voice dripped with poisoned honey. "How thoughtful of you to save us the trouble of hunting you down." "I offer myself in exchange for the hostages," Valora said clearly. All 47, including the former queen. Release them unharmed, and I will surrender willingly. Celestine's laugh was a cruel, brittle thing. You think you are in a position to bargain? You are one woman against an army. Your mongrel king hides in the forest with a handful of strays. You have nothing. I have the mark. Valora pulled aside her dress to reveal the glowing crescents on her hip. I have the true bond to the Alpha King. I have the one thing standing between your family and legitimacy. Something flickered in Celestine's eyes. Greed. Father will want to see this. She gestured to the guards. Bring her. Keep her alive. For now. They seized Vylora's arms roughly and dragged her through the gates. The city that had jeered at her 4 months ago now watched in uneasy silence. Common folk peered from shuttered windows. She saw fear in their faces, but also something else. Hope. Whispers followed her procession. The beast speaker has returned. The king's true mate. She came back for us. They threw her at Lord Morthane's feet in the great hall. The man who had orchestrated her humiliation sat on Kaelin's throne. His silver hair was immaculately styled, his robes trimmed with ermine, his fingers heavy with stolen rings. So this is the creature my daughter was meant to replace, he mused, studying Valora with clinical interest. I confess, I expected someone more impressive. Release the hostages. Valora forced her voice steady. That was the agreement. There was no agreement. My daughter made no promises. Morthane smiled. But I am not unreasonable. The hostages will be released after we have extracted that mark from your flesh and ensured you can never threaten my family's claim again. Father, Celestine interrupted, the moon rises in 6 hours. We should proceed with the executions as planned. Let the king watch his loyalists die while we destroy his bond. An excellent suggestion. Morthane rose from the throne. Take the Beast Witch to the ritual chamber. We will remove the mark first, then attend the executions. No need to rush our pleasures. Guards hauled Valora to her feet. This was not the plan. She was supposed to buy time for Kaelin's wolves to infiltrate the castle. Instead, she was being dragged toward some chamber where they would carve the bond from her body before any rescue could arrive. The mark on her hip screamed with heat. Through the bond, she felt Kaelin's wolf explode into action. Felt the howl that tore from his throat as he realized she had been betrayed. Felt 300 wolves surge toward the city in desperate, premature attack. They would not reach her in time. No, she thought. It cannot end like this. The guards shoved her into a stone chamber deep beneath the castle. Chains hung from the walls. Blades gleamed on a table. And painted across the floor was a circle of symbols designed to sever mate bonds. Hold her, Morthane commanded, producing a knife that glowed with sickly green light. Valora struggled, but the guard's grip was iron. The knife descended toward her hip. And something inside her shattered. Not broke. Shattered. Like a dam releasing a flood that had been building for 23 years. The power exploded from her in a wave of golden light. The guards flew backward, crashing against stone walls. Morthane stumbled, his knife clattering to the floor. Celestine screamed. But Valora was no longer aware of them. She was everywhere. She was in the mind of every rat in the castle dungeons, every bird circling the towers, every dog in the city streets, every horse in the stables, every wolf for miles in every direction, and they all heard her command. Rise. The city of Arendal descended into chaos. Rats poured from drains in unstoppable rivers, swarming over guards and nobles alike. Birds dove through windows in shrieking clouds, clawing at serpent masks and exposed eyes. Dogs turned on their masters. Horses broke free from stables and charged through the streets. And from the forest, 300 wolves burst forth, joined now by every wild creature the land could offer. Valora walked out of the ritual chamber through a corridor of fleeing guards. Her eyes blazed with golden fire. Her mark shone through her dress like a beacon, and with every step more creatures answered her call. She found Morthane cowering behind his stolen throne. "Monster!" he spat. "Demon! What are you?" Valora looked down at the man who had tried to destroy her. "I am the voice of every creature you deemed beneath you," she said quietly. "And I am the mate of your king." The great hall doors exploded inward. Kaelin's wolf form burst through, followed by a tide of loyal wolves and wild beasts alike. He shifted mid-stride, catching Vylora in his arms before she could collapse from the strain of wielding so much power. "I have you," he breathed against her hair. "I have you." Around them, the battle for Arundel raged, but in that moment, surrounded by chaos and blood and the screams of their enemies, Vylora felt only peace. She had stopped running, and she had finally discovered what she truly was. The fall of House Morthane took less than an hour. Without their guards, without their walls, without any defense against the united wrath of beast and wolf alike, the conspirators were routed. Lord Morthane was dragged from behind the throne in chains. Celestine was captured trying to flee through the servants' passages, her beautiful face twisted with hatred as wolves forced her to her knees. The hostages were freed. Vylora stood in the great square, trembling with exhaustion, as 47 prisoners emerged from the dungeons into the morning light. Some wept with relief. Others simply stared, unable to believe their salvation. And then an elderly woman appeared at the dungeon entrance, Lady Morena of House Valdros, the former queen, Kaelin's mother. She walked with dignity despite her imprisonment, her silver-streaked hair still somehow elegant, and her eyes sharp and clear. When she saw her son, something softened in her weathered face. "Kaelin." She touched his cheek gently. "You came. I could not leave you." His voice was thick with emotion. "No." Morena's gaze shifted to Vylora, standing exhausted nearby. "You could not leave her." She released her son and crossed to stand before Vylora. "So you are the one," Morena said softly. "The beast speaker. The true mate my son tried to reject." Vylora straightened despite her fatigue. "Yes. I watched the choosing from my chamber window. Saw my son's wolf lay himself at your feet. Saw my son refuse what fate had given him." Morena's expression was unreadable. "I have never been more furious with him." Kaelin made a sound of protest, but his mother silenced him with a raised hand. "And I have never been more proud," she continued, "than when I heard what you did today. You came back for strangers, child, risked everything for people who had shown you nothing but cruelty." She took Vylora's hands in her own. "You are exactly what this kingdom needs. What my son needs." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "What I prayed he would find." Tears spilled down Vylora's cheeks. "I do not know if I can forgive him yet," she admitted. "Forgiveness takes time. But love?" Morena smiled. "Love is already there. I can see it in both of you." The trials were held 3 days later. Lord Harren Morthane was convicted of treason and conspiracy against the crown. His sentence was death. Celestine was stripped of her name and title. Exile to the frozen northern wastes, where she would live out her days as the nothing she had once called Vylora. Justice, swift and absolute. But it was what came after the trials that mattered most. Kaelin found Vylora in the castle gardens at twilight, surrounded by birds that had refused to leave her side since the battle. They scattered at his approach. "I have something for you," he said quietly. He knelt before her, holding out a small wooden box. Inside lay a ring, a simple band of silver set with a single amber stone, the color of wolf eyes, the color of his eyes. "This was my grandmother's," Kaelin explained, "the last true mated queen of Arundel. She left it for the woman her bloodline's wolf would one day choose." Vylora stared at the ring, her heart pounding. "I am not asking you to forgive me," Kaelin continued. "I am asking for the chance to earn your trust, your respect, your love, if you will ever give it." "I already love you." The words escaped before she could stop them. "I have loved you since your wolf first laid his head in my hand. I have loved you through rejection and exile and dreams that felt more real than waking. I have loved you even when I wanted to hate you. Kalen's breath caught. Then let me complete the bond. His voice trembled. Let me claim you properly, not through force or accident, but through choice. Your choice. Valora took the ring from the box. Yes. The claiming ceremony took place beneath the full moon, witnessed by every wolf in the kingdom. Kalen tilted his head, baring his throat in submission to the woman fate had chosen. Valora pressed her lips to his pulse, feeling the bond thrum with anticipation. Then her teeth sank into his flesh. The world exploded into golden light. Everything Kalen was poured into her. His memories, his fears, his desperate love. She felt the agony of the months without her, the wolf clawing at his sanity. And he received everything she was in return. The years of isolation, the cruelty she had endured, the strength she had built, the love she had carried like a secret wound since the night his wolf first touched her. When they finally pulled apart, both were weeping. My queen, Kalen breathed. My king, Valora answered. Around them, wolves lifted their voices in a howl of celebration that shook the stars. 1 year later, the throne room of Arendal had never held so much life. A hawk perched on the windowsill. Wolves dozed by the fire. A family of foxes had claimed a corner near the servants' entrance and no one dared remove them. And on the throne sat Queen Vailora, her golden crown catching the light, her hand resting on the swell of her belly where twin heartbeats fluttered beneath her palm. Kalen stood beside her, his fingers intertwined with hers, watching as common folk and nobles alike came to pay respects to their new queen. The beast speaker who had saved their kingdom. The woman who spoke for those without voices. You know they will be like you, he murmured, low enough for only her to hear. Our children, they will carry your gift. Valora smiled. Then the beasts of this kingdom will have 2 more friends. And 2 more protectors. Kalen raised her hand to his lips, as they have in their mother. Outside the castle, the birds began to sing, a harmony that seemed to carry words for those who could hear them. Chosen, bound, complete. What the world mocked, fate crowned. The beast speaker sits upon the throne, and she will never be alone again. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this story.